Good evening. Welcome to Faith and Recovery Live. I'm going to wait just a moment and see if anybody logs on here. We're going to be talking about gratitude tonight, how gratitude works in our faith and in our recovery, and how those two things work together. Gratitude is extremely important. It's a big part of both faith and recovery. I think it could even be said that it's one of the points where faith and recovery intersect. Both faith and recovery are definitely impacted by gratitude. They both benefit from gratitude. If you have faith, there is going to be some kind of gratitude, most likely as a part of it. And in recovery, if you don't have gratitude, it's unlikely that your recovery is going to last long, honestly. Entitlement is a huge derailer of recovery. So that's definitely something to think about. Sorry to get started a little bit late this time, but that does happen sometimes. Okay, so Faith and Recovery, like I said, welcome to Faith and Recovery Live. Still outdoor edition. We're being able to do outdoor edition right now because the weather is nice. It's not raining, it's not storming, so we're going to go ahead and enjoy the outdoors. So the topic tonight is gratitude. Gratitude. How does gratitude have an impact on our recoveries? How does gratitude impact our faiths? And then how do our recoveries and our faith intersect back into or fold back into gratitude? How do those things connect? How do they work together? So the first thing to do, I think, like always, is to talk about what is actually gratitude. So some people say gratitude is thankfulness. And I think there is definitely something to be said there. There's a connection between those things, I do believe. Thankfulness, I think, is maybe a smaller container for what would be sometimes called gratitude. I think gratitude is larger than thankfulness. I think thankfulness is being full of thanks or giving thanks. And gratitude sometimes is not as vocal. It's not as visible, I think. Gratitude is something deeper, something, I think, a little bit more spiritual or more invisible. Whereas I think thankfulness is very much an action. You're giving thanks, you're being thankful. I think it's something that is performed. Thankfulness is an action to be performed. I think if you talk about the attitude, you say, well, I have an attitude of thankfulness. Okay, I know there's overlap between these words, but I really think gratitude is a deeper, richer word. I think thankful is more of a surface level word. So what is gratitude? Gratitude is the attitude of recognizing a couple things. First of all, that something has been done for me, given to me, some positive has come to me for which I have no responsibility, for which I could not have caused this. I am not the source of this good that I am currently appreciating or enjoying. That's gratitude. Gratitude is not satisfaction. Satisfaction can very often be attached to my own behavior, my own action. I can be satisfied with my own behavior. Gratitude assumes an other. Now, you can have an other and be satisfied. Satisfaction doesn't have to be with toward yourself, but gratitude assumes and requires an other. You can't show gratitude to yourself. You can be thankful, but gratitude implies an other to some degree. Now, When we talk about an other, this is where sometimes people in faith communities get uncomfortable with recovery communities, because recovery communities talk about something called a higher power. And so faith communities sometimes will say, well, that should be God, that should be Jesus. This higher power stuff is, that's too vague, that's kind of nonsense. Okay, well, leave that for now. But the fact remains is that when I am practicing gratitude, when I am having gratitude, I am assuming it requires me to believe in something other than me, that is greater than me, that has been able to benefit me. So, for example, if I am in a restaurant and I recognize that the bill is going to be more than what I have in my bank account, and so I begin to look around for some other option, I'm assuming, because I've already realized that my bank account is too small. I'm assuming an other bank account, and I'm assuming a bank account that has more than what I have. That's what gratitude is. It's recognizing that there's something other than me, and that other than me thing is greater than me, has more than me, is able to benefit me. Gratitude is also, like I mentioned, is an attitude. It's something that is inside. You don't do gratitude. Now, because we speak the English language, we do strange things with our words. And we'll make nouns out of verbs and verbs out of nouns, and actions will become objects. And, Google is a thing and an action. So I understand that the language can be iffy here, but hear me. Gratitude is something that is inside of us. It's an attitude. It's a position of the heart. So that's what gratitude is. Gratitude is something in our hearts that recognizes an other that is greater than us, and an other that is beneficent, or that is giving to us, that is benefiting us, that is blessing us. When we have gratitude, how does that have an impact on our faith? A long time ago, I grew up in a world where I read the Bible, and we prayed prayers, we sang songs, and God was good because life was good. And when I got up in the morning, I didn't have to worry about bills. I didn't have to worry about my own children because I was a child. Life was good, therefore God was good. My experience was good. And then life happens. You know how life does. As my friends at church will say, life be lifing. And then the question comes, is God good or not? Because my circumstance is no longer good. I find myself in addiction. I have a child that is stillborn. I have bills I can't pay. I have family that are troublesome. So my basis for seeing God as good was gone. Gratitude steps in there. Gratitude is something that if you allow it to, it causes a faith to, instead of being founded on something, it allows it to be attached to something. Instead of having to have a foundation underneath of it, it is fastened to something that is above. There's a scripture that says, set your affection, or set your love, or give your heart to the things that are above, not the things that are below. Faith that is built on earthly foundations. I believe God because, my grandma did, or I believe God because I have this good job, or whatever. I'm not saying that that's bad, but that is vulnerable. Gratitude is something that it doesn't matter what goes wrong. If I have chosen to have gratitude, that attaches my faith to a God that I believe, I assume to be good. By having gratitude, I'm assuming that the benefit coming to me is coming from Him, and it's something that I appreciate, and so I give gratitude. So gratitude has an impact on faith. It anchors it in things that can't be taken away. Now, some people say, well, now this is an old reference, y'all, but they'll say, well, that's a Pollyanna attitude. You know, whatever goes wrong, you just say it's good. You just turn to the positive. Well, to some extent, yes, and to some extent, no. I have a friend who is a pilot, and he taught me something about the word attitude. So altitude is how far away from the ground the plane is. Or I guess how far away from sea level. I'm not sure. Obviously, I'm not a pilot. Altitude is how high the plane is. I think that I can say that. Attitude is the direction the nose is pointed. If you have a negative attitude in your airplane, the nose is pointed down. Now, you could be 50,000 feet up, and a negative attitude is not going to cause you a problem immediately. You can be only 10,000 feet up, and a positive attitude is not going to get you somewhere fast because your altitude is high or low. But what is certain about an attitude is the direction of the nose. Given time, that is going to have an impact, because as each weather condition is encountered, the attitude directs the momentum. Living in gratitude does not look at everything and say, oh, that's great, that's wonderful, that's a happy thing. It just keeps the nose pointed up, and as each storm has gone through, more altitude is gained. There's a verse in the Bible that talks about things working together for good. And I am not going to try to exegete that verse, okay? I'm not going to do that. That's a lot deeper than we can tackle on Facebook Live. But what I do think is important to point out is that we are not called to give thanks for all things. We are called to give thanks in all things. All things are not good. All things can work for good. There are bad things that happen. There are things that are wrong. The promise is not that all things will be good. The promise is that no matter what bad things happen, we will be able to have that positive attitude in our airplane, and we'll be able to go through them and wind up with more on the other side. Gratitude allows that to happen. Now, how does gratitude impact our recoveries? Well, gratitude has an impact on recovery in a sense that it gives recovery an energy. It gives recovery an extra life, is one way to look at it. Recovery is a lot of work. Recovery is hard work. Doing the disciplines of recovery, going to meetings, reading, journaling, going to step studies, doing step work, meeting with a sponsor, maybe even sponsoring people. There's a lot of work there. And one of the things that happens in recovery is that we begin to have a deeper understanding of ourselves. We actually get to know ourselves a lot. We see ourselves deeper than we ever have before. We go down into ourselves. Sometimes it's like spelunking, okay? We put on the helmet, we put on the light, and we grab our rope and jump over the side down into these abysses of ourselves that we've stayed out of on purpose for a long time. When we get down into ourselves, into those dark places, isolation is a very sneaky thing that can happen. Isolation is the kill zone in recovery. If we are in isolation, we are going to die, period. And sometimes when we go into recovery, especially if we've been doing it for a while, the work gets so heavy and the choices begin to pile up, and isolation just kind of sneaks up behind us. The first step out of isolation and the surest step out of isolation is gratitude, because what did I say? Gratitude assumes an other. It assumes a beneficent other. It assumes an other that wishes me good and has the power to do so. And so if I stay in gratitude, I can never be in isolation. If I stay in gratitude, I never get into the kill zone in recovery. It is impossible. As far as I can tell, everybody I've talked to, my own experience, it is impossible to actively practice gratitude and relapse at the same time. Now think about that. In recovery, how many surefire tools do we actually have? How many things can we actually point at and say, if I do this thing, I'll be okay? Gratitude is one of those things. This is why if you build a relapse prevention kit, you put a gratitude list in it. This is why if you journal, you put gratitude in your journaling. This is a key. This is a foundation to staying sober. Gratitude destroys isolation, and isolation is the thing that kills us in recovery, and so gratitude is what brings us alive. I remember one time, this was also a while back, for those of you that know more about me, I was living in Muncie at the time, so this was several years ago. I was working a job that had me traveling all around the town during the day, and really, even though, I had software on my phone where, my accountability partners could see where I was. They weren't really going to know exactly where I was in town, and this day was supposed to be random. So it was a day where if I wanted to do something wrong, I could do it very easily and not get caught. And I was having a hard day. I was having a lot of intrusive thoughts. I was having a lot of preoccupation. I wasn't really in the trance yet, but I was right there before it. And I couldn't get my head clear. I couldn't get in a good space. And I could take you to the spot. Like, I know where the street is. I was walking toward my truck. That also tells you this a while ago. I was walking toward my truck, and it was as if my spirit, like I heard, not with my ears, but with my heart, heard with my soul, I heard someone shout, "Gratitude!" And I thought, oh, yes, gratitude. And I looked up and I said, God, thank you for the tree. Thank you for the bird. Thank you for, I just started naming things that maybe didn't even make sense, but I was choosing to show gratitude for those things. And within 5 to 10 minutes, I was back in a safe spot. I was back in a safe place in my head. It's not magic, okay? It's not an incantation. It's not a potion. But it does absolutely work. Gratitude guards sobriety. So that's how faith benefits from gratitude. That's how recovery benefits from gratitude. But then how do faith and recovery impact gratitude? We'll go back to faith. Remember, gratitude assumes a beneficent other. Somebody, something outside of me that has power and uses it for my good. Well, faith gives that other a name, a face, a personality. One of the other things I do is I do Bible class at my church, and we're going through the book of Genesis right now. And there are certain passages in the text where if you actually read it and you actually pay attention to the words, you start to pick up that the God of the Bible has a personality. There are things he finds offensive. There are things he finds humorous. There are things that there's even sarcasm sometimes. Not like the harsh cutting kind, but like the irony kind. Gratitude is to something faceless or something impersonal to some extent, but faith puts a face on that beneficent other. Faith also targets gratitude, harnesses gratitude. When you know who you're giving thanks to, when you know who you're showing gratitude to, it allows you to do it more effectively. I don't know if you ever had to go to the store and buy a card. This is a task, part of our culture in this country that I despise, buying cards. Not because I don't like to show appreciation to people I love, and not because I don't like to celebrate people I love, but because I am disgusted with how general and vague and meaningless most of the stuff in the cards is. So there's this unfocused property to the stuff that's in these cards. And so it's like, why would I even buy this? And if I do buy it, I'm going to have to write something in it myself. So I normally buy the blank ones and just do it myself. But faith allows the card that we buy to become specific to the person we're giving it to. A higher power, Jesus Christ. If you're a person of faith, your higher power, Jesus Christ, the one who is able to give you things and care for you. If our faith is small, if our faith is untrained, then it can't have the impact on our gratitude. It can't focus our gratitude. But if we spend time growing our faith and expanding our faith, going deeper in our faith, then our relationship of gratitude becomes richer because we actually know the person we're grateful to. We begin to develop a relationship. Faith also informs gratitude in the sense that, like I said, gratitude, when I was being rescued that day at work, I just started being grateful for anything I could lay my eyes on. Faith actually teaches me where to look for things to be grateful for things to show gratitude for. Because faith, or living as if Jesus is Lord, or believing loyalty, however, whichever of my phrases you want to tie in, fill in that blank. Believing loyalty, we use that one. Believing loyalty shows me where to look for things to be grateful for. So, for example, most of you have relatives. And most of you have relatives who do things differently at their house than you do at yours. When you walk in their house, you know that the vacuum cleaner is going to be in a different place than yours is. You know that maybe they keep the soap in the bathroom in a different place. Who you're with tells you where things are going to be. Some people keep their important documents in the freezer. Some people keep their ketchup in the cabinet instead of the fridge. Okay, I know, barbaric. Anyway, who you're with determines where things will be. And so faith tells us who we're with, which then helps our gratitude know where to look for things to be grateful for. So, for example, my faith tells me, because it's built on the text, built on the Bible, my faith tells me that I am that no how do I say that nothing comes to me, no circumstance comes to me that hasn't been approved or allowed by God. He's all powerful, and if something comes to me, he has allowed it. So then my gratitude allows me to look at things that are coming toward me and show gratitude for the fact that they have been filtered through the hands of God. Or my faith tells me that the reason I'm able to have a relationship with God is because of something that Jesus Christ has accomplished on earth. And so my gratitude is able to focus on the things that Jesus Christ has accomplished on earth and then have gratitude there. Because remember, it's the gratitude that keeps us out of isolation. But if my gratitude doesn't have a target, it's not as effective. Faith gives it a target. How does recovery impact gratitude? Recovery is a lot of disciplines. Recovery is a lot of things that we do every day because they're the right thing to do. Recovery is learning how to walk again. Recovery is learning how to eat again after a stroke. Recovery is putting back together something that is broken. That attention to detail, that willingness to do the thing over and over and over, what that does for gratitude is it makes it a discipline. Okay? Now, the story that I told you about being rescued by gratitude, that's a good story. Okay? I like that story. I even think of it sometimes as an encouragement to myself. Gratitude came and found me and called me. Okay? But how much better is it to have a discipline of gratitude? How much better is it to have a habit of gratitude? How much better is it to have a way of life of gratitude? Recovery does that. The disciplined nature of recovery, the fact that I'm rebuilding a life for myself, allows me to put things into that life that I'm building. And if gratitude is a part of my experience, then as I'm using recovery to rebuild my life, I'm building gratitude into the fiber of who I am. You know, there are people that never say thank you. There are people that are never grateful. Now, they're miserable, but there are people like that. If they were to experience recovery, they could rebuild a life that was full of full of gratitude. So, how does faith benefit from gratitude? It gives it something to anchor to. How does recovery benefit from gratitude? It keeps us out of isolation. How does faith benefit? How does faith feed back into gratitude? It gives gratitude a face. It gives gratitude something to look toward, a person to engage with. And how does recovery impact gratitude? It makes it a daily discipline, makes it a habit. Now, a couple things about gratitude. I think I mentioned earlier, quite a while ago, gratitude is not always bright and shiny. Gratitude sometimes is messy, it's gritty. Imagine in your mind, you've got kids and they're playing in the street and it's hot. Some of you know what hot is outside, like 100 degrees plus, that's hot. Kids are playing in the street. And one of them has access to a hose and a sprinkler, and they hook up the sprinkler to the hose and they turn it on and they're playing in the water. They are grateful for that water. Okay? Now, as children, they may not articulate the same, but they're showing gratitude. They're jumping, they're screaming, they're laughing, they're running, they're throwing their hands around like they're just having a great time in the water. They're showing gratitude. They have gratitude for that water. Now, transport yourself to maybe a desert. A desert that's gravel, not sand. And there's an older gentleman, and he's got, maybe some. We'll make this. This is a good story. He's got cowboy clothes on, and so he's on his hands and knees, and he is bending toward a little puddle at the bottom of a ravine that's about the size of 2 dinner plates, and it's muddy, and it's old. Like, you can see the rings around the water. But as he, sucks that water into his mouth, he is also grateful. He is also showing gratitude. Now, he's not jumping around. He's not waving his hands. He's not screaming and yelling with laughter. But he is grateful too. He is showing gratitude too. He is just as aware of the benefit. Maybe he's even more aware of the benefit of that water. Gratitude is not always fun. Gratitude is not always sparkly. It's not always shiny. Sometimes gratitude is just an absence of anger, an absence of frustration, but not even that. Sometimes anger and frustration are present with it. Gratitude is simply the acknowledgement. It is the believing and the living as if you believe that 2 things, good has come to you, and it came to you from someone greater than yourself. Hey, Kadira, good to see you. Gratitude doesn't always have to be shouting and happy and laughter. Sometimes gratitude is just acknowledging and accepting that someone greater than me has given me something good. That has an impact in faith. Sometimes when you go to church, or sometimes when you go to worship, there may not be, and that the good things that have come from Him. That's gratitude. Sometimes in recovery, as things get difficult, there's the honeymoon phase to anything. It has to do with the endorphins in our brain. New, novel. That's a dump. That's a dopamine dump. Well, that wears off after a few weeks or months or years, and it's not new and shiny anymore. We can still have gratitude. There's that overwhelming wave of gratitude in early recovery when we realize, oh my goodness, I have escaped. I'm alive. Well, that kind of wears off after a while. You gotta work a job. You gotta show up to meetings. But the gratitude can still be the foundation. There can still be an acknowledgement of good has come to me from someone greater than me. One last thing about gratitude. And this is not just about gratitude, but it is, it fits here, okay? My pastor likes to say anything that's concrete, anything that's physical in the world was non-physical first. Anything material was non-material first. If you're looking at a table, that was an idea in somebody's head first. If you're looking at a skyscraper, you're looking at a heart transplant valve, that was an idea before it was a thing. Anything that's visible was invisible first. It's good to have gratitude in our hearts. It's good to have gratitude in our minds. But it's really important to put gratitude out there in the concrete world. That's why we have gratitude journals. That's why we go to meetings and we say it out loud. We give voice to it. We put it out there in the physical world of sound waves and energy. We take the gratitude that's in us that's invisible, we make it visible. The impact of doing that in recovery is that when your insides are messed up, you can go back and read, and it's a physical thing that can then be retranslated back into something invisible. You can read in your journal, such and such happened. I was grateful. I showed gratitude by doing this, this, and this. And on the days when you're struggling, you can go back and see that. And that thing that was inside you, that you took and put outside, now you can put it back inside you. What does it do in faith when we make it visible? Well, this kind of carries over into the recovery world too, but when we put it out there in the physical world, it allows someone else to benefit from it. We're not here just for ourselves. It's not about us, just us. It's about all of us. And if I take the gratitude that's inside me and I give voice to it, I speak it, I write it, post it on Facebook, that allows someone else to benefit. That allows someone else to be impacted by it. That allows someone else to receive the benefit of it and maybe stimulate gratitude in them and get them out of the kill zone and get their faith attached to something meaningful. So just having gratitude on the inside, that's great, but it's better to take it and put it out where it's visible. So that's gratitude. That's gratitude in regards to faith and recovery, and then faith and recovery feeding back into gratitude. I trust this has been helpful for you guys. It's helpful for me. It really is to review these things. This is the foundation of recovery. This is the foundation of faith. These principles, gratitude being one of them. So thank you all for joining me. I've really appreciated being with you. I've enjoyed being with you. And if you want to see this again, of course, you can try to hunt for it on Facebook. You can also find it on my website, faithandrecovery.net, www.faithandrecovery.net. There's a section, resources and videos, and then these are all posted there. That would be great if you look it up there. If you want to contact me, or if you have an idea for something you'd like me to talk about in one of these Faith and Recovery Lives, you can put it in the comments to this, or you can contact me through the website, either one. If you have something you're curious about that has with faith or recovery, either one, I would be very willing to dive into that with you. So see you guys next time. I do believe next week I should be able to do this. There's going to be some irregularities in my schedule toward the fall, but I do think we'll be able to do this again next week. If there's any changes, I'll let you guys know. You guys have a great evening. Love you all.